Hey, and good evening. It is the Bob and Kevin Show coming to you on a Wednesday night. I think it's Wednesday, and that's February 28th, almost March. Tonight we're going to talk about how other people are doing interview programs and things like that. And there's one particular instance that we're going to talk about. Kevin and I were discussing this when it first came out. And not to give too much away, we're going to just start right now. We're going to talk about the David Letterman interview with Barack Obama, and it's apparently something that's in the style of his new show. So Kevin's kind of waiting for me to reveal what we want to talk about here. And one of the big things is the way that this show was edited really struck me as interesting for this format. So, Kevin, that's the big reveal, the way that this show is edited versus the way someone like you and I edit our show. And this is actually a really good clip that you had up there, because one of the things that I wanted to talk about is just how the cuts. Did you, by any chance, take notice of that when you were watching it?
Maybe. So just to inform the audience here a little bit here. So Bob ambushed me with this topic, and I'm really still in the dark. Weeks ago. And he
would never reveal what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah,
so what I want to talk about is the editing style for this program. It bothers me, to be honest. So like this clip that you're showing here is some of the B-roll stuff that was going on in the episode itself. But the two of them are on stage, and they're in front of a live audience. And I thought that there was a little bit too much flip-flopping of the camera angles. And at some points, it made me believe or made me question the authenticity of the interview, because there were a lot of these shots where you see it in the spoof shows, like on Comedy Central, where the interviewer is not really in the same room as the interviewee. They just have somebody who's dressed up to look like them, similar hair, and they do the behind-the-shoulder shots. Now, obviously, they're not going to change the questions that David Letterman's asking. And this is a little tinfoil hattish here for this interview. So that's why I was like really interested to watch the second episode with George Clooney. But it appears that this is an editing style that they're employing for this type of show.
Well, I guess we'll start with it.
What say you?
It bothers you. I don't know if it bothers me, but if we, I don't know.
Because you and I have talked about the one shots and the two shots, like, you know, how we do some of the things here. And when I'm talking, Kevin will often switch in the control room to the big shot of me talking, but then he doesn't often go back to the big shot of him nodding his head while I'm talking about what I'm talking about. And that, see, like that, if we ran the show like that, wouldn't that seem a little awkward?
I don't know. So have you watched Star Talk with Neil deGrasse Tyson?
I have not yet watched it. Does it do a similar style?
It does, and you may not like it. So here's what happens. Actually, it's almost the exact same format. So you got Neil with two guests that are local in the room with a audience. And Neil will say something to the effect, or he'll have interviewed already Katy Perry or somebody like that. And then they'll cut to him talking to Katy Perry, blah, 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 and then they pause, and then they come back live, and they say, okay, now let's distill what she just said.
Is Katy also in the room?
She is not in the room. So you may find it also equally disingenuous, perhaps. But full disclosure, or spoiler alert, they won't say, oh, well, Katy Perry this and that, like negatively. It's all fun and, positive, so...
Right, but he's analyzing, or he's having a talk show about a talk show that he already had.
Yes.
Is that the gist of it?
That is the gist of it. Is that different in your opinion?
Right. So that is a little bit different, because that's almost like a third person removed kind of thing. But with this David Letterman show, and especially it did strike me as odd with the Barack Obama interview, I just felt like there was way too many camera switches for that, Screen Actors Guild kind of feel, where it's, a one-on-one conversation. Just personal preference, but I wouldn't want us to be editing our show this way. That's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about anyway. So.
Okay. Well, I certainly wouldn't want to edit anyone for content or whatnot, but just to give you a little bit of context here, This is how, well, shoot, if I can learn how to actually push the right buttons in the right sequence, then I will show you. So here's the live audience. They cut to the interview with Katy Perry and Neil. They have,
Wow,
great.
he gets to be on a couch with Katy Perry there. Wow.
I know, right? Total.
I'm jealous.
Yeah. So, by the way, Star Trek's a great show for nerds. I mean, you got to kind of be nerdy to like science 24/7 like I do.
I like their lower thirds too. Very nice.
Yeah, they do. And this is on National Geographic. It's a little yellow square right there. I watch it on demand, so I watch several of these in a row. I totally binge on it. So he'll interview someone here, and then they'll cut back to the live shot. Neil's back in the studio with the audience. The audience doesn't participate whatsoever, but the two people on, I guess, the local panel will then kind of talk about one thing that she may have said that was insightful, and they'll just kind of.
But how long does this clip run while they're just in theory watching it?
A while. maybe 5 minutes tops before they like say, okay, let's pause there. They come back. I kind of like this, to be perfectly honest, because it gives.
But it's very much a show inside a show.
It is a show inside a show. So to contrast that against what they're doing, maybe over at or what Letterman's doing, you're saying that you feel like some of it might be staged or highly edited for what?
It does give you that feel that it's highly edited for content. And obviously he's packing that into, is that like a 40-minute format?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think.
And he does intersperse, like he goes to some place and talks to somebody else. With the George Clooney one, he visited George Clooney's parents and, had side little vignettes with them. But I just didn't really like the quick cuts. And at one point it felt like they were coming almost like every 2 seconds.
Well, I mean, when I do my like regular YouTube video edits, 2 to 3 seconds is normal. Next time you watch a TV show, count to yourself: 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Sorry, European people.
But you're editing scenes together. You're not editing you're not editing a conversation.
Not necessarily true. Pardon me while I pull one up that I just recently did, and you might see a similar sort of effect. So every 2 to 3 seconds, the human mind, and I don't know if they teach us at film school. I don't know if it's just my gut feel. I don't know what it is, but every 2 to 3 seconds, the human mind seems to want to wander, and it needs something fresh. So a static camera, and that's why I try my best to actually switch our camera angles here every so often, to you, to me, to whatnot.
Right, but I feel like we do that at a much more palatable pace. So that would be really interesting if anybody who's watching this, leave us something in the comments after you hit that like on the video. Tell us if you think we should be having more cuts or not in these videos.
So here's me and my son, and notice that about every 2 to 3 seconds I'm cutting to something else, and it's still a conversation. In fact, if you could hear the audio, you would hear us talk from 0 to the end, with a couple of, I guess, transitions where we're not talking here and whatnot. But it's every 2 to 3 seconds, and I would say that is very normal, just because the humans are ADD, man.
Right, but I guess it's the over-the-shoulder stuff I don't like. Like, you're not doing any of that interview style where you're like putting the camera over your shoulder and then putting the camera over Jackson's shoulder, and I just.
So you're thinking more of like a Katie Couric or I guess former Matt Lauer style interview, where you're interviewing somebody famous like President Obama, a head of state, for lack of a better term, or somebody super famous.
But I even feel like those, when the head of state was speaking, they weren't cutting back to Katie going.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, that's what I'm trying to get out of you. So you're saying, well, I mean, I don't know if it's, obviously I don't think it's disingenuous. It may just not be a style that you or I particularly care for. Well,
this is the teaser for the episode also. So multiply that times 10. Because they weren't going to the B-roll stuff very often. It was mostly them conversing for like 5 to 7 minute blocks of this.
I mean, if we want to really kind of critique this, I would say that David Letterman, because of all the kind of compliments. Hey, you're still my president, or all these like offhand things. This interview is a bit of a sham. It's not really a hard-hitting interview. So
No, not at all.
does the audience know that going into it? I don't know.
The audience doesn't even know who the guest is going into it.
Okay. So and what is the series called? My next guest
My next guest is.
or needs no introduction.
My next guest needs no introduction.
And that used to be a David Letterman clip. And full disclosure, David Letterman. There's lots of disclosure that needs to happen here. David Letterman is from the state of Indiana. Also, Bob, I got to point the right way.
From my alma mater.
From Bob's alma mater at Ball State. So this is interesting that you're kind of critiquing, like, you're manning up here and be like, yeah, Letterman, what's up?
I could challenge a hometown hero if I want.
All right, we'll see.
I can't challenge Larry Bird. That would get me like death threats. But Dave Letterman, I could totally,
I don't like basketball, and I live in the state of Indiana, so I'll go ahead and hate on Larry if you ever need, somebody to fill in for you. So interviewing style. So I think it's a bit of a sham here. Well, I don't know. It's like, what is your expectation going into these interviews? And after seeing the first one, I can tell you the next X number of them it's just David. It's just two famous people talking in a room and kind of going, man, isn't life great to be us? And that's kind of, that's great. I'm sure it is great to be them. And there's some really fun stuff there. I found the content to be pretty good. But you're right. I did find some of the it's self-aware, and do you know what I mean by self-aware? The show is about an interview, but the interview, they're not hiding the production value. It's we've got I won't call it a fake audience, but a token audience. We've got David Letterman up there, and we've got President Obama up there, and we're just going to sit and have a fireside chat, essentially. So
pretty much.
So, it's not like, Katie Couric's interviewing David Koresh, in 1995. Sorry, I just watched, Waco stuff recently or whatever. So, insert some sort of hard-hitting, controversial, interview here.
Right, it's a fluff piece.
Yeah, you're right. It is a fluff piece. So, is that what bothers you? That it's a unabashed, shameless? Yes, this is a puff piece, and the next 5 will probably be too.
It's okay. I'm going to be really interested to see how his ratings are. But I'm telling you, when it came on and we were watching it, the first thing that jumped out at me is like, I have to talk to Kevin about the editing style.
Well, I tell you what. Truth be told, me being 3 hours physically from you is a bit of a barrier. I would rather you look like Katy Perry, but I would rather, and we don't have to share a couch, but I would rather be in the same room at least. When Neil kind of cuts back to their panel, and this is what their panel looks like here. And they're in, I think, the observatory that he works in New York City here. Usually has a comedian to his immediate left, and then on the far end, he usually has an actual, scientist besides himself. And they have some really fascinating,
I got to watch this because I like that setup. I got to watch this.
I do too. And in a perfect world, I wouldn't be coming to you live from my quaint little office. I would be sitting in a room because I think there's an extra bit of chemistry when people are in the room. So we're going to have that opportunity, hopefully, in October, right? We're going to do some stuff, but maybe even before then, right? So
I think we should try to do something in the same room way before that. There's a long summer between now and then.
Yes, I agree.
And I'm coming to you. It's my turn to come to you. So
yes, and there are other interview styles out there, and I'm vamping while I cue it up here. So it would be great to have as many guests on as possible, but when we do the kind of setup that we have here, it gets rather difficult from a technical perspective. Wouldn't you say? And logistically, just getting people all together. So we had David Neal, we had James Jackson South, we had Erica Questenberry on. I hope I got her name right this time.
I think you did great.
Okay, yes. So we do our best, but it's just getting people, together is a hard thing. So here's some of our friends. Here's Marcin from the Umbra Coffee Show that started the same week as us, I think. And then they use Hangouts, and they do a similar format here. And this
But I don't
works.
think they control the switching for them. I think that they do the auto hangout switch.
They probably do, but you can. You can disable that and go in manual. So
Right.
Marcin or whoever's running the Hangout can actually do that. So nothing wrong with this. In fact, this format here is way more about the content and less about the sizzle. So we got lots of sizzle, right, all around us, and sometimes that's a barrier. If we wanted to have an interview person, we've engineered, and that's literally the truth. We've engineered a way to get a guest here because it's not easy using the setup. Marcin and Umber Coffee Guys, they're basically just adding people to Hangouts.
They're just out of the box hangout. Yeah,
that totally works. So
and we could go that route. The one thing I do like, and I guess we can do a little self-plugging here too, is that for those of you who don't know, after the show goes live, there is an actual RSS feed that gets pulled into a third-party tool that we use, and it actually publishes the audio from each show onto iTunes. Actually, it publishes an RSS feed, and we've submitted it to a bunch of different places. So you can listen to the show through the podcast app on iTunes. You can listen to it on TuneIn Radio. You can listen to it through the AnyPod app on your Amazon device. So there's all kinds of different ways. But one thing I do like is that, yes, we have a lot of sizzle, but the show stands up really well in audio format only. Because I do actually listen to some of these because I want to learn our styles. I actually watch the videos as well, so we can learn, and grow as content providers. But I do like that it stands up really well on audio alone. Have you listened to them all, or any of them?
Some, but not all. So I don't want to sound like a diva because I'm not. But I don't listen to our own show. You hear a lot of actors say that. Well, I don't watch. Game of Thrones. People don't watch Game of Thrones. They're like that's work, man. Why would I do that? So right. I do watch every now and then, just make sure the audio isn't crap, and if it is crap,
right, you're doing a tech check more than anything.
Yeah, and if the audio is crap, there's really nothing I can do about it anyway, other than make it better next time.
But I listen to it from that tech check standpoint as well, but also from a content perspective. And I'd love also people, once they listen to the video or listen to the audio and click that like button and hit that subscribe, love for you to leave comments on the video and say, does this hold up? Is this something that's interesting to you? No, I only watched 3 minutes. Sorry, guys. Feedback's great.
All right, Bob. We named it. What do we name this? How other people do it, right? So
yes.
What or who does the best interviews then?
That's a really good question, and I don't know if I'm prepared to answer that. I just I don't have a favorite interview style. I just know things that that stick out to me. I don't know. Do you have a favorite?
Well, only because it's fresh. The way Neil deGrasse Tyson does it is great. I do like the occasional man on the street interview.
I lied. I do have a favorite. Ooh. I completely lied.
What you got?
It's Joe Rogan. Without a doubt. He does a really good job on his podcast. And he's kind of like my podcast role model.
And what makes him good, though?
He's a good listener. And he kind of does that thing where you can tell he's, mentally putting a pin in a topic. He knows how to start a conversation. He knows how to keep it going. And he also knows how to chime in with his own stuff. I don't really watch his video so much because it's just, two cameras toggling back and forth with guys in front of mics with headsets on. Weird. That's kind of like us. But it also represents really, really well in just audio format.
Yeah, I've actually never watched that before. I've watched Kevin Smith do like comic book stuff, and speaking of which,
Kevin Smith's also pretty good.
You saw he was in the news, right? He had a heart attack over the weekend.
I did see that.
And that's rough. He's pretty young. I think he's 47. So
a little big through the middle, though.
Yeah, well,
I don't know if he takes very good care of himself.
Maybe not.
He's bigger through the middle than we are, without a doubt.
Yes.
I've seen him in his hockey jerseys.
I tell you what, another one that I actually really like as far as interview style, and as I cue it up here, is the hot ones, the First We Feast stuff.
Yes, those actually are brilliant, and the concept is brilliant, but also like just the way that the interview. I love that he asks super thoughtful, introspective questions right after they bite into the hot wing.
Yeah. And then, I mean, it's definitely, so it's a conversation starter, right? So once upon a time, you and I did a very
I
similar
was gonna
thing.
say we did a hot ones type interview.
Yes, we did. And as I quickly pull up, can you tell the audience a little prep of kind of what we did real quick?
It was kind of almost like the kickoff of all this was just, let's see if Bob and Kevin could do content together. And so we had a couple conversations offline and thought that it'd be fun to do like an Umbraco packages thing, our favorite packages. And wouldn't it be even cooler if we did it with some really hot, spicy wings? And so we went from mild to spicy and did it outside. It was a beautiful outdoor venue. And we ate some wings and talked about some Umbraco packages. But that's pretty much how this all started, right?
Yeah. And I called you up one day, right? And I'm like, or no, I didn't call you. I hit you on Slack or something. Like, hey, you mind if I drive to your house? And I haven't really actually, done that before. And we'll have hot wings together and talk. And I know this sounds crazy. Let me send you a link to somebody else doing this. And I sent you, I think, the First We Feast, which we totally stole that idea.
Yeah, I watched the Kevin Hart one. The hot ones, Kevin Hart.
Right.
That was great. That was hilarious.
So, all right, good.
All right, so there are a couple different ways that we've approached this, and
yeah. So,
did we do a lot of cuts in the hot wings video?
No,
we
don't, because it's mostly a static camera.
Yeah.
So sitting on a table is a microphone with a dead cat on it, and we have a static camera.
It's so easy to lose that in the shot, though. It's so funny the way it just blends.
Yep. And the reason I went static cam here is because, for simplicity's sake, we had the ability to do multiple cameras. But the thing is when you have a two-person interview like this, ideally you'd want at least 3 cameras, and typically I only have 2 often. So you want a wide shot, an establishing shot, and you want one focused on each one, kind of crossing the streams there. So, it's not.
I'm kind of glad it was static. I didn't really need any close-up video of me eating those wings.
Well, and it's not cheap to acquire said gear, nor is it fun to trek it 3 hours, and set it up, because we had no power. So a lot of the gear that I get, I have to make sure that we're able to do it. And this is my Army training here, away from a power source, whether that be lights, whether that be
you had no cameras. Beard. I had a very small beard too. I'm just noticing that.
What's wrong with that? So here, I'm gonna switch here to the control room. So I've got lights right here. These are actually purely battery powered. I've got this is a sound mixer. This works purely off battery. This TV monitor here is also battery operated. If I want, I can also plug all this stuff in. And then a typical camera that we'll have out on a shoot, will be something like this. This is a Canon 80D with a shotgun mic on top here, and audio is typically always like some of the parts that I will totally freak out if I get back from the shoot and we have bad audio. Because if you have bad audio, I would rather have bad video than bad audio. 100%.
Yes, because bad audio is no bueno.
Yes, I mean think about when you're watching the football game and the picture's flickering in and out, but you're hearing that color commentator telling you exactly what's going on, who's fumble going on. You can deal with that, but if you can see it, but you can't hear what's going on, and suddenly you have like this panic attack. At least I do. That's the way I do it.
Well, do you want to take a couple seconds to talk about logistics for Chicago then? Or is it way too early for that?
We can, and I'll do my best here. So the way I envision it, at least, we're going to have to bring our own lights, bring our own batteries, and our own cameras, our own production.
Oh, yeah, we're totally going to have to bring our own gear. But I would say that, I just ordered another SM85 today for a podcast that I'm doing tomorrow night. So I could bring 2 mics.
Yep.
And I'll bring my Focusrite So, I mean, we go typical, portable USB setup. We won't have all the monitors. Oh,
Um,
oh.
you're correct. I can.
Well, we won't have guests, so that's okay.
I'll have a little monitor. Literally, I have a travel monitor. I mean, who has a travel monitor? And I have a travel. If I grab it, everything will fall down. A travel projector. It's literally the size of I don't know, a lunchbox or smaller, and that's useful. I think the biggest logistic problem for shooting out in the field, maybe I shouldn't use that phrase, for filming out in the field is internet. Bring your own internet is not easy, because if we do a live stream, we're like right now we're live streaming at about 2.7K is what we're getting on an upstream.
Will we get that on 4G?
You could, especially on download, but on upload,
Well, that's what I mean.
I don't know, and if so, it ain't gonna be free or cheap, is it?
Oh, yeah, that's right. We throw a lot of data out there when we do this. I wonder if we don't. I don't know. That's another good thing for the comments. If you're watching this video for US or whatever that festival is called now, should we go live or should we just record and then upload?
All right, let's take the opportunity to take a little mental floss break here and remind everyone that we would love to have you subscribe. Bob and I did this episode tonight spontaneously, fairly spontaneously. We kind of just said, we eventually need to do that one concept that you won't tell me what it is, Bob. And I'm like, okay, fine. How about Wednesday? Okay, we'll do it Wednesday. So no kidding, most of the content you're seeing right now on this episode is actually, I'm impressed that we're actually doing so well. We're totally ad-libbing today. We did zero show prep.
Typically for a Sunday, we do hours. I mean, for a Monday show, we do hours of show prep. We go over the headlines, talk about, what order we want to go in. I mean, there's quite a little build that goes into that, but tonight was totally free balling.
Bob, I ain't gonna lie, I kind of like this spontaneity. Maybe we just need to come up with something spontaneous every week and just hit the live button.
I'm down. We can do that. So one thing before we get away from the subscribe thing, we're trying to get to that 100 so we can get that custom URL on YouTube. So I think we're sitting at 86. So if you could help us get those 14 more, if you've watched the show or watching now and you haven't hit subscribe and hit that bell, go ahead and do it. The bell tells you when we go live. That's what the bell does.
All right, Bob, since you provoked this conversation on how other people do it and you are fairly underwhelmed with how David Letterman was doing it, describe for us your ideal. Bob, you've been handed the producer, hat. You've put it on. You now have to interview President Obama. We'll just make it easy. What format? And this is totally style. I'm putting you on the spot. And this is totally style. Well, how would you do it?
I would focus the least amount possible on the host for that. I mean, you've got, he was the most powerful man in the free world or the world. Sorry, I don't want to take that away from him for 8 years. Compassionate man. He's got an interesting story of transitioning from that role into, back into whatever he's calling his regular life. He's an interesting person, interesting human being. He's got tons of expression in his, and I would just focus on him. And maybe, shots of the audience reacting to the things he was saying, or the looks of admiration on their faces to be, within touching distance of that individual. So, I mean, if you're talking specifically about him or any interview show, really, the interviewer is not that important. Check your ego at the door, dude.
So I imagine that's what's really rubbing you wrong on this is basically the producer, because I blame producers.
Oh yeah,
for everything.
It's not him.
It's the producers who are like, "Hey, I got an idea, guys," and maybe it just came off sour. Speaking of ideas, have you ever seen the Frost versus Nixon documentary where I don't know his first name? Shoot, his last name's Frost, and he interviews Richard Nixon. This is obviously a dramatization of what really happened, but it's very interesting how uncomfortable that this interview ended up getting, because it was kind of a mental chess match between Nixon and Frost. Have you seen it?
Oh, I heard it was awesome. No, I mean, I heard the real life encounter of the debate was super awesome. So I should watch that.
You should, because without giving you too many spoilers, it was basically, the interviewer was tanking hard, very hard. And then at the end, totally got Nixon to basically admit wrongdoing.
Yeah.
And
even a blind squirrel catches a nut every once in a while.
yeah, but the interviewer was Frost. He was totally way out of his league on this, like the entire time. And then he just got a puncher's chance here, and he connected. And it was a good documentary. Interviewing is hard. Just I think
you should try it on an audio only interview with no video. The podcast is so hard.
Yeah, because I imagine you step on each other often, like talk-wise potentially, or the other person just kind of goes and goes and goes, and you can't give them a visual cue to be like, hey, I'm trying to jump in here. I'm trying to,
right.
I want to ask a follow-up. Oh, you kept gone to the next point. Damn it, so.
I love being able to do it with people all over the world, but hey, you know what? Like tomorrow, I'm going back to having somebody in my home studio because it's just, he's a great friend of mine, first of all, but it's just so much easier to have great conversations.
So can you think of any other examples besides Umbra Coffee? And there used to be something called, was it You Hang Out by Warren Buckley? What other successful, or if any successful, not in the same studio interviews that might be
not
successful?
In the same? I don't see a lot of people, I think, and especially where the money is. Like if you're talking like a Rhett and Link, you're talking the Twit Network people. They're all same room. Now they do cheesy ass green screen even in their studio, which I don't like, but it is what it is.
Okay. Yeah. So
I don't think we'd ever do green screen, even if we were in the same room, would we?
No, I don't. I've tried green screen so many times over my lifetime, and it's cool, it's neat, but it looks like shit, in my humble opinion. So
right, and we would never be in a set it and forget it. I guess if we finally got a big nice studio, we could set it and forget it. But since the way we work in our studios, basically, that would never work.
Yeah. So here's a Rhett and Link case. Nobody's ever seen these guys before. Are they Canadian? They seem. I don't know, that's a weird question to ask. They just I'm trying to place where are they at in the world, and I would guess Canada. I'm just told maybe they're like from like where I live, and I have no idea. But these guys are really good. But again, it's that format where they're in the same room.
Yep.
And I don't know if you've seen this episode. This is where Jack Black and them.
Is that where they do the random singing thing where they pick two things out of a bucket? Yeah, the Christmas. Yes.
Yeah, so you do like Silent Night and death metal.
Yes. That was a great episode.
It was, and so that's a good one. But I'm totally drawing a blank on two dudes or a guy and a gal or two gals remotely doing this live via satellite thing, or or just like how Umbra Coffee does it, where there's like three people. I would like, maybe we should be doing that. Let's go find some people who are doing that successfully so we can up our game a bit. So
I think our game's pretty solid. I think we just need the people.
All right. Where do we get these people from?
We need the comments. If our game is not solid, we need the comments.
And push that button. Okay. Moving on.
Comment. Tell us how we're doing. All right, man.
All right.
To do.
Okay. I just need you to go ahead and close this out, sir. It was a good talk. Good spontaneity here.
Yeah, we're going to do this more often for sure. But in the meantime, tune in next time and bring the lightning.